Alrighty, let's see if we're good. Did Greg Fields go live? Did you get a ping on your phone?
I did not.
Give it 10 seconds and let me know.
No, that's poor digest.
What up, Gavin?
What's going on here?
Gavin, we're doing DMing, starting.
Greg Fields went live.
Okay, good. That's a good sign. How's the? Do you want to check the audio and make sure it's all coming through for me?
Now you're checking the audio now that you've done several presentations already?
I've been trying to check the audio at the beginning of every presentation. Are you saying you found that there was a problem and didn't let me know?
I didn't watch any of the other
See what I did? That is, I think, a form of gaslighting. I'm not sure. I probably shouldn't have done that.
Are you Gregory Fields or Greg Fields?
Both, but my YouTube channel is
Greg?
Yeah.
Why can't I find you?
All right, I'm just trying to find the markers because it'll matter when we get over to the map. Okay, well today, how did I come back? So today we're doing another DMing workshop. We did do one earlier in the week. The one earlier in the week was the workshop on facilitating fun, and that is today we're doing a DMing basics specifically around designing encounters. The one on facilitating fun was about having the mindset to manage the table in a way that everybody can have fun and enjoy themselves. And so, boy, that's what I meant to do there. When we are, so just to recap that one for those of you, before we get into the nitty-gritty of trying to build an encounter for someone, or for a table, we want to make sure that we're setting a certain culture around the table. The goal, if the goal is to engage in collaborative storytelling, that means everyone has to be able to take part. It doesn't mean one person gets to monologue. It's not a way for you to test out your literary setting, though there are ways to do it well. But the last thing you want to do if you're facilitating fun is to have a situation where you monologue for 10 minutes at the beginning of a session, doing this crazy world setting and building that sounds so amazingly beautiful, and then the players don't get to do anything. So anytime we're engaging with tabletop gaming, it's good to remember that most tabletop games that are role-play based are not competitive, they're collaborative. So recognizing the genre of a collaborative storytelling means that everybody tells their own story. There are benefits to that. Just to give my normal spiel before we can fully jump into encounter design. The benefits of a collaborative storytelling mean that we have we get to enjoy hearing what other people say and responding to that, and it's unpredictable, and it's supposed to be playful. It's a way for us to engage in a shared creative process. With these types of games, we're not so much concerned with whether we win or lose, but how epically we succeed or fail. And that's like my tagline. Some of you have heard it half a dozen times at this point. But I'll say it again. It's not whether we win or lose with tabletop gaming, it's how epically we succeed or fail. That's what makes that story unique with that particular group in that particular moment or setting. So to keep it fun, we want to make sure that everyone around the table is getting a chance to share. So we'll talk more about this in the next session with advanced DMing and setting table culture. But one part of facilitating fun, running a game, is not being so rules-oriented that we lose sight of the fact that this is about hanging out and having fun together. The rules are there just to keep someone from being a 4-year-old and saying, so then I punch your guy in the face and shoot laser beams out of my eyes and destroy the starship and I win, right? That's the only reason why the mechanics and rule books exist. I know that sounds lame, but ultimately that's really what they're mitigating. They're trying to keep a game balanced so that everyone around the table can have fun. So as we think about game encounters, those values matter. It also means when we're trying to make sure that the table culture is good, that we are, if we're running a game, we're advocating for every player, even the quiet ones, even the ones who have characters that we're not as interested in, even if we've got people around the table who we're not trying to flirt with. Hopefully that's not actually in your game, but I know it happens, so I figured I'd mention it. So you don't want it to be awkward for a number of reasons. But when we're running a game, we want to make sure that every player has a voice. So in all seriousness, as a game master or dungeon master, your goal is to get everybody talking. You're trying to move the energy around the table and the activity around the table and the voicing of story around the table, so that everybody's involved. If you're a player in a game, it's your job to advocate for your character. So even if you're a quieter player or just a person who's a little more introverted, for the sake of your character's story, advocate for them. Jump in and say your character does something, even if that's not your normal strength. And because that's one of the great things about role playing in the first place. You have a secondary job, anyone at the table, of making sure that all of the players get advocated for too. So if you're someone who tends to be a little more talkative, like myself, it's good when you're thinking around the table, what am I doing? It's good to lean into advocating for everyone. So if I talk a lot, I want to shift and try and ask questions more, and that's a DM tip and a player tip, because a DM asking questions is forcing a response in a good way. It's the same reason that I can say, it's the difference between me saying, your battle axe flies across the room in response to someone saying they got a nat 20, smashing the enemy into smithereens. Like, I can narrate that myself as a game runner, or I can use the Matt Mercer phrase, how do you want to do this, right? And then they get to tell their story. And sometimes, even as a DM, I'll embellish a little bit or add some flavor to put it in the full context. And that's okay too. I'm not saying that's not. I'm just saying you want to ask more questions than give details, or let the silence sit. So, with that mindset in mind, our job, if we're trying to design a game, part of the basics of DMing is recognizing the workload that can go into it if you do it wrong, or if you're just really excited. And so one thing I like to do with any DM workshop is make sure people recognize there's so many ways to run a game that it's a part of it becomes about managing expectations to have a good game. And so if you are someone who wants to spend 4 hours developing a very intricate, complex world with multiple plot points directly designed for the specific players and characters at your table, you can do that. If you are a full-time student and working full-time and you have 10 minutes before the game's about to start, then that's what you do. And you do the best you can with the 10 minutes you have, and there are some strategies we can talk about as far as in-game running, or you can go back and watch the basics of facilitating fun on the live stream from earlier in the week.
You're doing great.
Thanks. I'm always nervous about talking this much. It's not supposed to be.
Doing good.
Do what?
You're doing good.
Cool, thanks. It's been a long week.
Totally.
Just so. But first, so before we go any further, those are some basic principles. So let's do this, and then we'll start jumping into different materials.
We'll be back for Daisy.
What? Fine. So they oh yeah, have fun. Tell Tala I said hi. They came for the last 5 minutes of the other session and left after 5 minutes of this one. That's fine.
Okay.
Hello again. Okay, so with some of those things in mind, let's just take a minute just so that everybody gets a chance to know each other. Share your name and what your experience is with D&D or running games. And we'll just work left to right. My left. What's your name?
Vanessa.
Okay.
I have no experience. I was just interested.
Okay. Cool. So no tabletop gaming yet? Okay. Well, we're glad to have you. Hopefully it'll be fun and enlightening, and you'll be ready to draw all your friends into this type of event. And you're not stuck here for a class or anything, you're just really interested.
I'm just interested.
Cool.
I'm Killian, and I've been playing various tabletops since 2015, so I have quite a bit in. And I've mostly run games for others, so.
Now, do you do that because you like it, or because everybody else just expects you to at this point?
A mix.
A mix, yeah. Okay.
My name is Tiernan, and I have little to no experience. I'm just interested.
Cool. Very cool.
I'm Connor. I've had experience with specifically D&D since around December, but I'm pretty familiar with it now.
And you're a keen strategist with board games in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I like a lot of board games. And thinking outside the box is always nice.
Nice. Very cool.
I'm Adam. I've been interested in D&D since like elementary school. Through seeing the broadcast of acquisitions in fourth grade. I played in on and off for years.
Do you like the ones that they do at like PAX conferences or the C team better?
I haven't watched them in a while. I would watch them in my class on stage.
Nice.
I'm Ryan. I've been playing D&D for a few years now, but I haven't ever really joined anything. So.
I'm Joe. I've played D&D for about 7 or 8 years now. I've ran a lot of one-shots. I've started a couple campaigns, but never really finished them. Never been a big fan of D&D.
Okay.
I'm Joshua. I mean, my experience is somewhat limited when it comes to DMing. Last time I tried to, my friends and I, we tried to do was Out of the Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
I was one DMing and it was rough, right? Just because I didn't know this when I was buying it. It's a sandbox campaign, so the players could do anything, and it was really hard to even prepare.
Yeah.
At one point, they almost went to an area that the characters could have been vaporized with no save.
Yeah. So that's fun. Yeah, I have had mixed experiences with prepared modules for a variety of reasons. If you use some of the campaign settings, they're really nice, especially if you want to kind of engage in actually reading through the book and kind of enjoying the lore a little bit as a DM. One of the challenges I found was that I have to understand the whole world and the intricacies and like what the storyline's supposed to be, or it's a lot harder to feel like I'm knowing what's supposed to link to what. So the first module set I tried to run was Horde of the Dragon Queen, and that one they have specific scenes and chapters, but at some point, like you have to kind of read ahead and know who the main NPCs are and what the main combat encounters are. Otherwise, it's really easy to kind of jump past something that was a significant plot point. And so, or if you don't know Horde of the Dragon Queen, at one point they're supposed to go to a cave where dragon baby eggs are being kept. And my players decided they got to the cave and didn't want to go in, and instead decided to track the caravan across country, which isn't in the module at all, and that's not what they're supposed to do. But they really didn't want to go in the cave. They're like, I know this is going to be just a series of encounters. They're like, we want to go follow the wagons. So then I was sitting there feeling like I had to calculate distance in the Sword Coast of travel and see, could they catch up with the caravan before it got somewhere else. It was fun. It was one of the coolest parts of that particular series of sessions. But yeah, cool. Okay, so thanks everyone for being here and for introducing yourself and sharing your background. That helps me have a sense of what you might gain. If at any point you have questions and I'm kind of doing my ADHD hyperverbal processing, just wave, flag me down, interrupt, it's okay. For those of you who don't know me, I don't think I did the introduction. Hi, my name is Greg. Some people call me Dr. Egg because I do spell Greg with 2 G's at the end and I'm a little scrambled. And I teach English 101, 102, mythology, and tech writing here on campus. I also do weird mashup courses, so I teach writing mashed up with chemistry, and I am also club advisor for the D&D club, which has anywhere from 3 to 5 tables most nights that we run, Mondays and Thursdays. So anywhere from 15 to 30 students are showing up for that. Yeah, so that's a starter. I've been doing D&D since, technically I had like 1 or 2 sessions when I was like 13. And then my friend's big brother had to work. And then I picked up D&D middle of my doctoral program in like 2016, 2017, started watching a bunch of streams, and ran games with my family and jumped in on a game with friends. And last year I did on average 15 to 20 hours of D&D a week, running games between the club and then private sessions that people sometimes would pay me for, which was kind of nice. The club did a big event, blockbuster event for a community that had like 30 random neighborhood people, and 4 or 5 of our student DMs here in the club, along with myself, went and ran tables for an entire community, which was pretty fun. If I do. They've also gone into my mythology class and introduced those students to D&D, which has been cool. So just so you know, those are some of the things that the D&D club does. And there's, I know some of those people are here, and there's, beyond just my experience, there's some fun experiences in the room that I can't capture just by talking about it. But yeah, yeah.
And the club's also running the one-shots tonight, right?
It depends on if we have new people. So if new people show up, we'll do one-shots. If it's all the same people and they want to do their normal sessions, that's fine too. So we'll see. Monday we didn't have any new people stay, so they kind of stayed for the workshops and then had to peace out, and they were like, I'll come back next week or something. So it depends. So, but there are options for one-shots. If you come to the club hangout tonight, which is 5 to 8:30, we'll have a variety of tables, and some of the DMs there have prepared things that you can just kind of jump into for tonight. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so if we're thinking about or what are some of the, first let's just start with questions. What challenges or questions have come up for you as game masters or DMs or as players, or do you imagine happening? We'll just start with what troubleshooting first. Okay, Connor first. And then
Just figuring out stats of enemies.
figuring out stats of enemies, like when you're designing an encounter,
Yeah.
to make sure it's balanced and stuff.
And
Or just
also
cuts.
just knowing what enemies are like what.
Okay.
Like what the kind of basics of that is.
Nice. Very cool. Joshua?
It's a similar thing, but mainly with creature CR. Creature CR seems kind of vague when it comes to what creatures to use for what like level of encounter. Like the party's like level 3, or the party's like level 5 kind of thing.
Okay.
Because sometimes you have like a creature that's like CR2, but it's really tanky and can probably like wipe a party that's like gone to level 2 kind of thing.
You can pass those, just give one to everybody. You do pick a card in the card. So he's passing around, this is one tool I use sometimes when I just need to grab something. You can do the same thing with online random encounter generators, or roll tables. One of the books I like to use most is, I want to say it's Xanathar's Guide, but let's get there first. I think Xanathar's and the Monster Manual work well together. So while the cards are coming out. So if you don't have time to prepare, one of the things I like to do is give game masters tools so that preparation is minimized, because what we want is for you to have fun at the table too, and no one wants a game session to feel like homework, right? It's not, you don't want it to feel like the next draft of an essay unless you really like writing essays. And I do, but I prefer the spontaneity at the table. So I've gotten to a place where I will walk into a session with like the ideas that I practiced on the way here in the car, even for paid gigs, and it works out fine. So part of it is knowing some strategies that kind of help you get things kind of stay flexible enough so that you can do that. I talked about some of those in the other workshop, so you can go live stream that. The quick version is, we'll talk about some of the strategies, but one thing to keep in mind is you can pace the game when you are prepared slower, so that when you're not prepared for whatever the players throw at you, it feels the same. Because if you pause a little more when you are prepared, when you need to pause because you're not, it all feels the same. There's a continuity, and it's a steadier pacing. Because sometimes when we're really excited and we know what's next, we will do it faster. And then we have a tell when we aren't prepared, and players will make fun of us. Not really. They'll play fully. Like one of my players likes to go, "Are you doing that on GPT right now?" And even if I have it prepared, I'll say maybe, just to mess with them. But yeah, so there's that. All right, so when we're looking at this card, so I have, let's just read the ones I have. What do you have? I have Giant Spider. Joshua, what do you have? Behir? Is that the big lizard creature?
Yeah.
Behir? Yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure to pronounce it.
If you're running the game, you get to decide, whatever it looks like to you. Like if I got this and I didn't know how to pronounce Giant Spider and I said Guy Ants Be Bear, like I'm the DM, that's how they say it in this region. Gosh darn it, it's a localized regional dialect, okay?
It's definitely not.
It's definitely not Giant Spider. Come on.
Definitely not being
I got a diviner.
A diviner,
Transmuter.
transmuter, druid, arc druid. Okay.
Warlock of the Great Old.
Okay, and say your name one more time.
Tiernan.
Tyrion. Okay. Great. Warlock of the Great Old Ones. Okay.
Illusionist.
Illusionist.
Master Thief.
Nice.
Martial arts, Adam.
Very cool. So when we're looking at these, the CR rating, just to explain challenge rating. So it's this here at the bottom. In the monster manual, it'll say CR1, CR2. The challenge rating is the expected difficulty based on a party of 4 players of average experience. So 4 average players should have a moderately challenging time to do whatever that challenge rating is. So if it's a challenge rating of 1, if it's a challenge rating of 1, 4 average players should be able to handle that with minimal character death, but a little bit of challenge. If they're at level 1. Challenge rating 1 means level 1, 4 players. Just to lock that in. So what do you do if you want a giant spider that is more like Shelob in Lord of the Rings? Well, you could just take a stronger enemy and call it a giant spider. So let me see the Behir one. All right. So for instance, the Behir has a challenge rating of 11. So 4 players level 1, introductory encounter giant spider. 4 players level 11, pretty advanced at that point. I can say, well, all of the things on here suddenly become my giant spider. It's like literally reskin like that. And this is now Shelob from the Lord of the Rings, CR 11. Does that make sense? So you don't have to overthink it. Like, your players don't know. And sometimes if you go, I have a giant spider, and they're like, oh, giant spider. If they're players who know the system well, and you go, yeah, well, it looks like it's a giant spider, and they don't know that you've upped it to CR 11, and they're level 11, they're going to go, oh, this will be easy. This must be like the warm-up or something. And then they'll go and start attacking and realize this thing's got, they're expecting it to have, 26 hit points, and it has 168, right? And shoots acid damage, and Constitution saving throws about get before or they get swallowed, right? Things like that. So that can be one really easy way to take an encounter that's lower level and make it bigger. You can also do the reverse. So if my players, I want to give them something unique, I can go, okay, a Behir, so I can use the basics of it. It is supposed to be a huge monstrosity, but that's a little overwhelming for a level 1, because huge is literally like the size of a building, right? And a giant spider is more like the size of a minivan. So if I go, okay, I go and you see well, actually here, how would you describe that, my artistic friend?
It looks like a snake that has legs.
Okay, so you come across a snake with how many legs? Give or take.
Like 10.
Okay, so you come across a blue creature with that appears to be a snake with legs, and your party goes, wait, what is that? That's weird. But then you go on to basically use the giant spider stats for it, and maybe it's an easy encounter, but it's got novelty because it isn't just a spider. Does that make sense? So these are quick swaps you can do without thinking a whole lot, and literally use the same creatures with new skins. If you're like, oh, but I wanted to, I pulled the giant spider card, I've got level 1, I can use the giant spider, but make it a robot. Make it arcanely powered by magic. And then when I'm describing the damage they're doing, instead of saying your scimitar slices through the belly and Icarus blood pours out, you say Icarus hot oil drips down, making the floor slippery. And it's like, well, oil versus blood, 2 very different, like same kind of texture, but signifies a little differently. You can say someone goes to stab with a dagger. Instead of saying your dagger lands and slices through the sinew of the leg, because part of this is descriptive combat language. Not every part of D&D is this violent, but this particular part might be. And instead of saying like slicing through the muscle and sinew, you go, it slashes through tubes that seem to hold arcane energy, or cracks a crystal, and the leg stops functioning, right? So that's just reskinning, but the same hit points and the same things. Tracking with that? Syringe-like pincers stab at you, shooting juices, or whatever. That's a weird way to say that. But you get the idea. So you can reskin it. And so that's one quick thing. So look at the cards you have, actually. So first, tell me, so what's your CR rating? I stole yours. Ha. So, actually, turn to someone near you and say, my CR rating's this, so that means, what does that mean? Just make sure you understand, see if you remember it. Turn to someone near you. And so how many players at what level would that mean?
So like
Against four
four
level
people of level 3.
Rating of 3 is 4 people level 3.
Yeah. Level 3.
It's a surprisingly high amount.
Yeah.
The challenge is the bottom corner, bottom right corner.
Mine is challenge rating 3, so like 4 players of level. This is designed for like 4 players of level 3.
I thought you said challenge rating 2.
No, 3. It's the same as yours.
Okay. So did everyone feel like they understand challenge rating a little better now?
against like one players. They can just body it.
So, next strategy for designing encounters. You have designed an encounter CR level 1, CR1, right? I'm supposed to have 4 players tonight show up. So I'm expecting 4 players, level 1, it's gonna be cool. We're on our second session, and I wanna put them up against the giant spider. Well, one of them calls out sick, right? And it's just like a McDonald's shift. It's like the whole place just stops working, right? That's not actually how McDonald's works. They call in somebody new, but you can't replace players that fast sometimes. At the club you can, because there's always someone sitting around ready to jump into a game, it feels like, which is good. But if you have a player call out, how do you adjust something that was supposed to just sort of challenge them? If you only have 3 players, well, now this becomes a much more challenging encounter. Or you say, okay, so this thing usually has 26 hit points. I will, let's say it's a little sickly. Or it just finished hunting goblins, and you come instead of it being alone in its lair, it's out about. And so maybe there's a dead goblin on the ground that it's feasting off of, but it also is injured. So now instead of 26 hit points, I bump it down to 19. Or I roll a dice or something. But I can make a decision, or I can roll a dice if I don't want executive function decision fatigue. Does that make sense? I can make it move a little slower. Instead of having 30 feet of movement, it's missing 2 legs, it can move 20 feet. I can have it, if its bite is usually a D8, I can make it a D6. You just lower it. Worst case scenario, your players smash through it really fast, and if they still have a ton of hit points, a second one suddenly appears from behind a tree. Right? So you can make it sickly, you can make it a baby, you can have it in mating pairs. Man. Oh, I did. Okay. So, what are some other story things could you do to explain a giant spider or whatever's on your card suddenly not being as strong? Let's do the ones on your card. What's something that if you lost a player, we'll do 2 or 3 people, what would you take away from that card if you lost a player for the session? Killian?
My guy is a spellcaster, so I take away some of his stronger spells.
Pick one.
Phantasmal Killer.
Phantasmal Killer suddenly not on the repertoire. This one was a C student. He learned a good amount of magic, but he didn't learn that big one, right? He wasn't like the A+ studying every night. Sorry if anybody felt triggered there. Yeah.
Eyeballs.
Okay, who else? Another example? What would you take away from that? What would you do? Since you're like, I have no experience, but I'm curious. What would you take from that?
The actions?
That's an option, yeah.
Actions or their stats or something.
But pick anything. Okay, and you had the Master Thief, right? So now they don't have evasion, right? Master Thieves are supposed to be quick and able to get out of things easily. Evasion gives them kind of the escape route. So then if you take away evasion, maybe when you're describing that, if there's someone at the table who's used to the Master Thief, maybe you describe it as they have an injury, or what would be something else? If you're going to take that away, how would you explain it in story for a Master Thief? If they're not going to be able to get away as quickly. Okay, so maybe they get a peg leg, right? They used to be able to do evasion, right? And then maybe that's part of the preamble of the character before it becomes a combat encounter. Back in my day, I could swing, I don't know, leap small buildings in a single bound. I don't know. You guys get where I'm going. Okay, so now do the opposite. If we have to take the giant spider and we want to make it more difficult, what would we do? We suddenly have four players are supposed to be there, and one of them's like, my girlfriend wanted to come and see what it's like. Can you give her a character and let her play with us tonight? That never happens. It absolutely does happen. And then they stay, and then they bring another friend, and suddenly you're up to 8 players per table.
Yeah, it's totally D&D.
It's a little overwhelming if you get that many people. I'm not actually bitter, I'm being playful. So what would you do if you have an extra player? So now something that was supposed to be for 4 level 1 characters or 4 of whatever level that is, now you've got a whole extra person doing damage, having special abilities, casting spells, slashy, punchy, whatever it is. And it seems like it's going to make that encounter not so interesting. What are some things you can do to make it stronger? Look at your card, see the powers it has, and if you know more about the game, you can throw in anything. But you can look and say, what would you do? Let's come up with 2 or 3. We'll ask 2 or 3 of you to share. What do you got?
If I was going to put this creature into one of my campaigns, I'd probably give them like a lair of some sort that's a diviner, so they have spells that are like maze or delayed fireball blast and stuff like that.
Okay.
So if there was more players than I would expect, then I'd probably make the dungeon more dangerous, and then or have them have more like minions under them or something else that can soak up damage for them.
Nice. So those are at least 2 separate strategies, but principle being is there's something that can take more damage. So we can say 3. Increase hit points of them, so it's harder, but that also slows down gameplay sometimes. But adding the layer, the environmental factors is what they're called sometimes, is described as environmental factors, or minions. Those are great options, because if you imagine anybody who knows that they have expensive stuff, right? If they're at all smart, are they going to have an alarm system? Are they going to have a security guard, even if it's a bumbling oaf? Maybe, right? So these are expected kind of normal things. Like, it would be reasonable that they're not just alone counting their coin in a closet, right? They're about doing things, and so it's also something to remember. Like, you don't usually just walk into someone just hanging out staring at a ceiling. So what are they doing as part of it? Pick a card, any card, Enrique.
I'll choose all.
By the way, that's Enrique.
Hi, Enrique.
Enrique is one of our longest running DMs at the club. If you think like I've run games almost every session, and you've run games every session that you weren't in Mariah's almost.
Oh yeah.
And then like Ryan's, but you're there like 2 days a week too. Yeah. If you look at everyone in like Max doesn't run games as much as you.
Oh yes,
right?
that's true.
So, not that we're comparing. I'm just saying.
I mean, you have a lot more experience than me.
Okay, so what would you do? What do we got?
Well, the here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I looked up this lore apparently, and well, I looked up this lore. And apparently, it was created by the storm giant. So maybe I was thinking of giving it like some sort of storm, like as weather, and then like lightning would come down and target people with that, specifically people that are wearing like metal armor, like a paladin. I don't know, like I guess like a knight fighter.
Yeah, so that's really cool. You have, maybe it's the storm giants that created it, added some layer of protection, so you get like a call lightning type storm effect. It could also be that there's literally a baby storm giant that it's like riding it, right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly that becomes a lot scarier. Or maybe it's a regular human riding it, but they have some blessing of the storm giant, or have belt of storm giant strength, or something like that. Right? What do you got? Bigger jockey. Bigger jockey. Yes. And which okay, yeah. I was gonna say which takes us to the next thing I was gonna do, but let's do one more example and I'll come back to that. Connor, do you have one?
I have martial arts.
Okay.
I was thinking like probably if to make them stronger, they have some moves here like deflecting missiles, which is interesting. And because it's like martial arts, I would think like maybe give them some more like maybe something like a grab-based move or something to toss up some players, throw them out of some positioning.
Okay, and say which one it was again. I know I heard.
Martial arts at it.
Okay, so where they can like throw.
Yeah, something like that. Something to screw up their positioning or spacing.
Yeah. So the same way like Rhino in Spider-Man can knock people back or might do a charge
Something
move.
like that, yeah.
Someone
or
else
maybe
might.
like a wind knockback thing.
Yeah.
Martial arts can be
Or
a
some
way
sort
into
of
that.
tumble and roll toss type thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. I like it. So you can add abilities. You can. Where would you get those abilities? If you're gonna add something, Killian.
Monster manual. Flip through. Pick a random page. Boom.
You could pick the monster manual. That's a great one, right? Those are tested. They have mechanics. What else could you? Where else could you get them?
We could also just go to Homebrew and like just find Homebrew things like I don't know, like say like it's coming from another creature stat block that you think would fit well on whatever you're trying to pop.
Yeah. So you grab from somewhere else. You Google a homebrewed version of it. See if they have an interesting take. You can literally create out of thin air, mid encounter.
Actual history.
Actual history?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like if there's for the martial arts,
Mhm.
for example, like you could try and look through like some techniques or genuine historical like ways people fought
Yeah.
and pull something from there.
So if you've got some of that knowledge in your background, or if you've seen Karate Kid, or if you've seen some Shaolin monk movies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you got, Killian?
Kind of building off that of like mythology. I remember that one Greek tale of the guy who couldn't be defeated while he was touching the ground. So yeah, he'd be like defeated midair.
Yeah.
So something like that.
So speaking of mythology, I taught mythology this semester, and one of the students brought in their grandpa's mythology textbook. First publication like 1926, second 1940. Classic myths that live today. 1940, I feel like culturally they were trying to say something about understanding monsters. But, right, Hitler. Okay, alternatively, like I have a bunch of myth cards that those students created, like 130 myths and items, so that's always fun. Not D&D, but some of them, like Baba Yaga, have D&D counterparts and stuff. But yeah, mythology, any pop culture, insert Pokemon here. Sometimes you've tried to craft an encounter, and the players are just blowing through it in like double pace. And so one thing I did was I was not expecting it, but we were also getting close to the end of the session time, and we've been going for like 3.5 hours. I was going to have them we were just going to get through one round of combat, and they basically took my big bad boss lady, who was a snake lady with magic, and they knocked like 80 hit points down in one round of combat because they had a surprise round, and she only had like 84. So, since I couldn't go, I'm like, I don't want this to be the end. They've been working up to this for 3 sessions. I don't want it to be a 10-minute encounter, right? So I gave her 3 forms. And so on the fly, I made up a second form so that they had something as a cliffhanger. So, and I don't think that's unethical for the record. Because if our job is to facilitate fun and it's too easy, then it's no longer fun. And if the goal is, so there's a little bit of managing player emotions that does happen when we design encounters. So if we've been building up anticipation and it's a letdown, well, they're going to be like, and they're not going to feel the way the encounter was supposed to make them feel. So it's okay to make it harder. Now, if everybody starts dying and you're making it harder, that's just being a jerk. Just to be clear. You can do the opposite. If everybody's close to death and you want to go, but I designed it to be, well, if they're all dying and you don't want all the characters or the players to re-roll characters and be depressed for 4 weeks, just pull the hit points back and let someone have like the last culminating moment instead of saying I have to hold true to the encounter I designed. Your encounter is supposed to be for the players to enjoy, right? And if they've savagely beat your encounter quickly, you can decide whether that's fine, or if they're struggling to get past it, you can decide whether that for whatever reason the guy has motivation to make them slaves, to leave them as if dead, or ignore them because they're so puny. Right? There's other options than just combat, which is going to be the next thing we go to. But to close that thought out, there was a thought there somewhere. I have to go back to the steps. You can, yeah, so bottom line is you can create from anywhere. And when I was running this game, I basically, one of them had a sneak attack, did a cool flip, and basically did a really powerful damage. Over 30 hit points knocked out when the person only had 4 left in the first form. So I basically had it like slice through the first layer of skin and have that fall off and reveal a different type of character inside, but still the same person. So it was like transformative. And then the last one was sad. It was like the escape phase. So they tried to beat up the second one, got it almost dead, and as it's running away, they kill it with an arrow or crossbow bolt. And it transforms again into a boa constrictor and tries to go down a hole, but they just blast it with some, it wasn't quite fireball, but it was really close, and just destroyed like a 10-foot radius area. So, but that wouldn't have happened if they hadn't gone through the first one so fast. And I wanted to make sure that, so that became one of the most complex encounters I think I've ran, and multi-phase, and it was really fun to design it that way, partially on the fly. Okay, next thing is, we've been talking about these as combat encounters. Just because you drew something like a giant spider, or a Bahir, or an illusionist or a master thief, doesn't mean the players have to punch them in the face or be punched in the face. Right? Roleplay, like D&D traditionally does lean into combat. The dungeon part of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, both of those assume a certain level of combat and physicality or violence. You can play D&D as a tabletop role-playing game in any genre you want. They've come up with, like Candlekeep Mysteries has a variety of ones connected to the Candlekeep library in the world of D&D, which is Sword Coast, and sometimes you'll get to go on an adventure to a beauty salon, and other times where there's a different type, there is some intrigue and that sort of thing. Other times it's a political intrigue type thing, but let's do it this way. So let's have, here, roll one for me. So I sometimes will roll for genre. I'll go, okay, traditional action, which is like combat style. Like I'm gonna make it be just a regular old bad guy. So action, adventure. I might go romance, slapstick comedy, or what's horror, right? And so if I, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll roll a d4 like this. So he rolled a 4. So now my giant spider, which was gonna be a traditional action adventure, now I have to figure out how do I make a giant spider encounter a horror film? Well, it's already a little scary because it's a giant spider, but tell me, what are elements of horror that I would add in on the fly? Or that I might reskin like we've been talking about?
Maybe the encounter could take place in someplace scary, like a cavern, or a dilapidated old house.
Okay, dilapidated old house.
Yeah, and then like it could be like chasing them down in the hallways.
Okay, so I might try and add some of those elements of like, what is it? Jump cuts? Jump scares? Yes, jump scares. I might try and create eerie music that doesn't, or strange creaking sounds that don't say anything. Hi. Well, you know. Everybody say hi to my wife. This is Yolanda. It's been a long day. Been a long week. Everybody say hi, Yolanda.
Hello.
Everybody say bye, Yolanda. And some of you know Liala, she's a student here. And then the other one in blue is my youngest daughter, Mila. That's true. My wife's a student here too. Almost done with her AA. Anyway, you gotta get those hugs in when you can. You know what I'm saying? It's all about quality time. That 30 seconds. What happened?
Which one made the mask?
The middle daughter, who's not here right now. I'm assuming. Oh no, she's over there. She just didn't come say hi. She must have been like looking at the books. She got distracted by books. She does write them. So my middle daughter, who made the mask, also wrote 200,000 words in a year when she was 12. I'm not a proud pop as a writing instructor. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, back to our question. Thanks for putting up with that side quest. So we could roll randomly and say, okay, I'm not gonna go with a traditional genre, I'm gonna mix it up. And then I roll randomly and come up with it on the fly. Or I can make that part of my normal process and say I'm gonna roll before I even get there. We're gonna have a different type of episode this time. So horror could include perception checks that they hear scratching or creaking that is just the wind, or links to something else. It could be opportunities for jump scares. I could just make the spider have a higher stealth or have the ability to do some sort of mimicry or add an extra element. What else?
You could pull foreshadowing, in maybe like a Harry Potter kind of style, where they're in forest with a lot of tiny spiders.
Yeah.
It's like what I mean,
Make
going
them
from
hack.
trees or whatever.
Because I believe in Harry Potter, like they were all going somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. And traveling out the window, and they followed them into the forest.
Yeah. That once you meet where they're going, you find the giant.
Yeah. So that's good. Making you could also shift it so that if you wanted to shift into a horror genre, it could also be more of a, you could make it more ghostly. So maybe it's a ghost spider, right? And the apparition is a violent apparition of a spider. Or there's a ghost that has taken control of this giant spider, causing it to grow to unusual proportion. And you don't find out until they find a diary first. Like they go into a room, they're searching a haunted house equivalent or a dilapidated house. They find someone's scroll or diary where they were writing out some process that then says, and then the spider attacked after my fair love's ghost went into it or something. I don't know. She apparently was really angry, and then blood spatters or something. What time is this one supposed to go to? Is it 2:45 or 3?
2:45.
2:45? I just want to make sure I didn't lose. There's some practical things that I want to talk also. Okay, so we can roll that. What's also really great is I want to talk through these books real quick. So the Monster Manual has all the core monsters, but I do like Xanathar's Guide because it has all the random table generated things, if I'm remembering correctly. Sometimes I get Hit and Volos mixed up. So if I'm not sure, if I'm starting a new campaign or a game that's supposed to be a one-shot, I will roll, sometimes I will just roll a d8 and I will flip to the environment that is that number. What did you have?
Volos has stuff for monster layers and monster behaviors.
So Volo has stuff for monster layers and behaviors, like the mindsets. And the psychology of monsters is kind of a lot of fun. You can draw inspiration from anything you like. If you want whether it's for a character or a monster, if you want an NPC to basically be Charmander from Indigo League, first or second season of Pokemon, Charmander is the sassy teenager. And so basically, or Charmeleon, right? Charmeleon. So you do a Dragonborn, half Fire Genasi, and now you've got Charmander, and you just put a sass on. That's it. And that's a new NPC. So you can draw inspiration from everywhere. Everybody say hi to Coda. So one thing, so I do like to use the random encounter generators or roll tables, either because it tells me my setting, or because it will give me something random. So let's see, what do we have here? So does everybody know what a D100 or percentile die is? Who doesn't know what that is? Raise your hand if you know what it is. Very cool. So almost everybody? Okay. So, well, Christian, here, we'll let you roll a percentile die. And we're going to assume that I have 4 level 5 players. And we're going to make this a coastal encounter, so we're near the sea. What do we have? 43. So, with a 43 here, in the book, we come across 3 sea hags. What are assumptions what's like I use this as what's the s'more? Let me explain this metaphor. There's the obvious choice, right? And so I call that the s'more in any sort of story decision or design decision. The obvious choice is if someone gives you chocolate, marshmallows, and graham crackers, what are you going to make? So this is from an episode of Chopped that I saw. The guy who won the episode of Chopped did some really fancy thing with it and didn't end up with a s'more. So what is the s'more if you're given 3 sea hags and it's a coastal encounter? What's the obvious thing that you can do? Which isn't bad, I'm just as a starter. Okay, mermaids. So, give me more.
Like obvious.
Yeah.
Like siren type creatures, long, beautiful, and they're like singing type thing.
Yeah. And they probably want to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, that is its own encounter perfectly good, right? But I like to say, instead of the s'more, make it weird. Everybody say, make it weird. You're like, we're already thinking about playing D&D. Come on, Greg. No, it's already in a fun way. So alternatives, what are some alternate things we could do for sea hags? Well, if we roll genre, where'd my D4 go? And then tell me your name one more time. Vanessa, here. Roll a D4, let's do genre again. So what did we say? Action, romance, slapstick comedy, or horror? A 2, so that was romance. We have 3 sea hags, and it's supposed to be a romance story. Now, sea hags usually are kind of evil, witch-like creatures of the sea, kind of mermaidy witch-like creatures a bit. But how do we make that a romance instead of a let's kill them, they're evil?
You said romance, right?
Just romance.
Just romance.
Did you say bromance? I mean, I guess that's
No,
an option.
I said
Sea hags are
romance.
usually all women, but you could play it any way you want.
Whatever your preference is.
They could have cast a curse on a sailor so that he could never meet his love who's waiting on the coast.
Okay, so then you let the romance be for someone else. That's an option. So they're inhibiting another romance. So part of that scenario is you kill the sea hag, you save the guy, and he can go meet his lost love or whatever. That's kind of where you're going. Okay. What's another way we can do this?
Your wife is with child, and because hags often eat babies, instead of they've kidnapped your wife, so you have to go save your lover.
Okay, that's a way to work in romance. Again, still keeping the sea hags as the bad guys, having the romance be external. What do you got?
The 3 sea hags come up, you can choose which one to do.
Today on what's the oh gosh
It's like a nautical
Love
dating
Island.
show.
yeah, like Love Island, or what's the one? There was one with 3 contestants and it was on the other side of the wall, but I can't remember what it is. Is it like Match?
Love is Blind.
No, I wasn't thinking Love is Blind, but it is an option. So then, so you can make that a silly thing. Like they're like, you're gonna date one of us or else. That's an option. But then, how do you do that with a group of 4? Alternatively, what if? I mean, you could be inspired by Love is Blind or Love Island. Those are legitimate. Because what if this is all 3 of them are in love with the same person, and you have to decide, and they let you decide which of them should be allowed to pursue that. And it can be like a person that matches their energy or whatever. It's, it doesn't, you don't have to assume that the sea hags are evil. If they haven't shown you they're evil, they're just sea hags and they haven't killed anybody in front of you, then what's wrong with setting them up with or helping them make this decision? Maybe they're like, one of us has to love the person more, so you get to decide. The party has to come up with a series of tests, right? So that's an option to make it about romance. You could also say, like, you come upon them arguing, one's trying to take a step away and say, like, sisters, I know that we've been together for a while, but I kind of met a guy, right? And then and then they're like, what you do, or the party does, is escort that one sea hag. They're like, escort our sister or we'll kill you. Or just for whatever motivational reason, escort our sister to where her lost love is, or where the lighthouse is, or whatever. What do you got?
I know hags often make covens, so they're like, this is like basically a friend group, but they could be a polycule of sea hags.
That's an option.
And you're trying to like resolve, they bring you in to resolve it like a spat or something.
When we started this, we really thought there weren't going to be any intersocial issues. And then we watched, what's the, Sister Wives? Is that the one that's like the guy who has, yeah, anyways. Okay. All right, so with that, options. I'm just saying, whatever you roll, it doesn't always have to be a combat encounter. You can make it a slapstick. You can have it be a romance. You can play with any genre you want. You can let it be a heist thing, and you're trying to steal something from the sea hags, or you're trying to help them. They're part of your team now, and for an entire mermaid society to survive, they became sea hags to conquer this guy or whatever. You can make it up as you go. Okay, for this next part, Let's talk about, I want everybody, go ahead and stand up, because you guys have been sitting for a while. I've got about 15 minutes. And I want to show you some, we're going to talk technique here. I kind of feel bad. So come around this table over here. And I've got to find my wet erase markers. I'm hoping I didn't leave them in the room.
Oh, he was all like,
Good, I've got one. Okay. So for this next part, got a dice bag there. Actually, we'll use your. Can we use yours? Oh, sure. Okay, cool. All right. So we have options. So for one of the benefits of being part of our D&D club here on campus is if you want to DM, you can use maps like that. I have like 40 or 50 already printed, and that's one half. So not all of them are that big, but we have maps that size that can make for some really interesting encounters, especially at higher levels where you might need more range or want to have a larger combat count. So that's always something. If you're someone and you don't come to D&D all the time, but you want to send a message and say, hey, can you print this map for me? Let me know. Okay, so there are ways we can play the game. You can always ignore maps completely. You can do theater of the mind and not really track distance as straight. You're like, yeah, they're about 30 feet. They're about 90 feet. Instead of doing all the strict math, you can follow the rule of cool, which is if it makes sense and there's not anything obviously stopping that person's magic from getting where it needs to go, let it go. Otherwise, sometimes there's a benefit, especially with new players. When you're introducing new players to the game, it is not as much fun to do theater of the mind for a new player. So when you're designing an encounter or engaging with new players, keep them rolling dice. It's tactile. And get them and it's auditory. ASMR is like dice, right? It is a thing. Will trigger their brain differently. Get maps if you can, even if they're hand drawn on the back of Christmas paper. Have you ever noticed? You guys know that trick? It's a great cheap one, right? It's got the grid for finding the best place to cut. So do something that involves a map. Even if you don't have this, I've literally used cardboard. You know, dude, you've seen this. But I've used things like this. Okay, there's a wizard's tower, right? I'm like grabbing things from around the house. You can literally use like a tomato paste jar as the wizard's tower, or some sort of guard tower, or some sort of rock obelisk, just to give a visual that you can put little minis next to, right? So it really does enhance the experience when people are able to do more than just talk, because not everybody is as good at that part of the game. But giving them something to move in a traditional game board style with X's and maps and stuff, really cool. Harder to do if you are not having time to prepare. So there are some things you can do. You can make up the kind of grab random recyclables thing, that's pretty easy. But if you want, you can also have these blank mats. This is a wet erase mat. And a handout, or you could buy some of the tiles like this. And so if this is the case, you can let them discover as they go. For whatever reason they're indicated. And so, do we have any minis? Reachable? Can you grab them? Enrique likes to use dice as minis, which I'm totally fine with, actually. It's a great scale up. I don't like using dice as minis when there are 30 or 40 minis nearby, but that's just me. Sorry, this vest makes it hard to sketch. I mean, I have, but so yeah. So it's one of those things, like you can say there's a fog, you can say visibility is limited, and you can use some of these things and literally just build it as you go, right? And so every time they move a tile forward, you can tell them that's an hour of time traveling through this cave network and see what happens. And you can roll to see if anything weird happens, have them do perception checks, play whatever else storylines you got. But it can be fun to have them go, oh, and then you stumble upon something, the ground changes and you start seeing bones on the ground and cobbled stones and the room opens up. So you can use those kind of materials. The other thing, one second. I forgot to grab them from the backpack. And I did used to have a better version of this, and if I find it, I will attach it to my live stream as a link. Here, everybody take one of those. I might have enough copies. So one thing you can do, if you're creating a dungeon on the fly, You can decide how they got to the dungeon and why. Or you can just say they woke up with amnesia and appeared there and don't know how. Or the last thing they remembered, they were being attacked and then got knocked unconscious, and then they all wake up in the same room. And so if you've got a map like this, you go, ta-da, there's a room. I need a D6 actually. Okay, I only have that many, so nice. And I can make more. I just did two.
Bright light and now you're all missing one of the kidneys.
Yeah, bright light, but now you're all missing one of your kidneys, or have had it replaced with someone else's kidney and it's necrotic. So with this one, if we look at it, it's a simple D6 map generator. So I'm going to say, okay, well, they're in this room. I'm going to roll a D6 to say if they go and try and, if one, are there any doors? Do you have a D4? Okay. So if we roll a D4, I might line it up as 1, 2, 3, and 4, just north, south, east, west, or something. So a 2, if they're like, are there any ways out? Okay, so you see a door on wall number 2, right? So there's a door. They're like, okay, I go and open it. You can make opening the door as difficult or as easy as you want, and then roll a D6 to say what's next. We have a medium-sized room that is in a long shape. So we're going to make it 2 wide and 30 feet long or so, whatever that is. So they come into a corridor. And then you can also roll here if you look 1 through 3 is open, so we could have said that's how difficult the door is. It's open and trapped.
It's a mimic.
Well, the door is open and trapped. But so if it's locked and trapped, it could be a mimic, like it's locked, like they touch it and their hand sticks. Could be an option. But if it's open and trapped, that means what kind of trap would you have with an open door? How would it get triggered? Tripwire? Plate?
Maybe range on the door. Spells like,
Tripwire, a giant guillotine blade comes down to
maybe
the.
there's a
Yeah. So there could be some sort of arcane symbol if it's already open. But that's what we would have. So that's open and trapped. So we can use this, and you can use a tool like this to quickly create what's next. So the next room is going to be actually where the D4 go. So if we go, okay, they walk in here, they make it past the trap. Okay, there's supposed to be another. They ask, is there any way out, or is this just an empty corridor? There's a door on wall number 1. Well, now what do I do? Because I've run to the end of my map. So I can always do the classic, squiggle. It continues over here, right? So I can say this connects, and that's or that's path A, right? Does that make sense? So this is just if you're trying to build it on the fly. I show you that as a quick tool. The other one is the traditional, what do I do if I need a whole world really fast? And this is where Enrique throws all his dice on, and I will explain after. There are whole systems. Yes, actually. Okay. You said on the table. Okay. So here's the thing. So there are whole systems for this. I'm gonna you can make it up as you go. So if you're like, I really wanted to build a continent map or a larger geography map, I can say, okay, are there? I could decide a certain set of dice are all of a certain thing. So what do we have the most of color-wise, or is there just a couple sets? Okay, so here's what I would say. Since we do a lot of black D6s or white D6s, so here's what I'll say. Because there's no blue, we'll say this is more of a desert, and the only points of water are the white dice. Making it up as I go, so it doesn't matter. What was it? I only saw, 3, so we can do that. Okay, so we'll say that this becomes a river, and then what we'll say is this river goes up to whatever this thing is. We'll decide what that is. That's where it starts, since that connects them. And then we'll use the white dice and the value on them to say how big there's a pocket of other water. And so this is 2, so this is going to be really small. That small water. This is 4, we go a little bigger. Right, this is 4, we go a little bigger, but it's shaped around that green. This is very big, so this is going to be a bigger lake-like thing, right? And then these are kind of connected, so we could almost do we could decide whether that actually leads off to some other thing. So now we have our water drawn. Since the gold ones are kind of cool, I'm going to say these are cities, so I can either just, or towns, and I can actually say, depending on the number, whether it's a big one. So this one was 20, so I'm going to make that a really big settlement. This is literally a 0, so that's going to be a very small city house type thing. You see what I'm doing here though? Okay, so you can kind of do this and decide what you want. If it's supposed to be a desert with minimal water, maybe I use the red or the pink to be like volcanoes. And so this is going to be a very small city house type thing. You see what I'm doing here though? Okay, so you can kind of do this and decide what you want. If it's supposed to be a desert with minimal water, maybe I use the red or the pink to be like volcanoes. And so this is going to be a very small city house type thing. You see what I'm doing here though? Okay, so you can kind of do this and decide what you want. If it's supposed to be a desert with minimal water, maybe I use the red or the pink to be like volcanoes. right? Especially since this looks like a chemical set, which is fun. So we're gonna literally make this a volcano, right? This is one way that you can quickly build a world map based on however the dice show up. And you can decide what logic you use, or there are tools online that can kind of give you it. You can also use tools online to randomly generate maps and find the one you like. Alternatively, one thing I really like is go find a real world map and rotate it like 47 degrees. And now call it and rename everything with the same first letter. So you go to Texas and you take the map of Texas, and this is now, and just surround it with water instead of land, turn it like 47 degrees, and now El Paso's up here, and Houston's down here, and you kind of, it's less recognizable. Does that make sense? So you can always do something like that. Yeah, cool. All right, so that is if you're trying to build a map quickly. So I think with just a few minutes left, what thoughts does this lead you to? What questions does it bring to mind?
One of the options for maps is, well, Mike, we use, we play online,
Mhm.
and we use, I think it's called Owlbear Rodeo.
Owlbear Rodeo is a good resource.
Yeah.
Roll20 is one you and Ryan use, right? Yeah. So you can use online sources like that. Takes a little bit to get used to the technology and to find the maps sometimes,
Yeah.
but they're good, yeah.
Yeah, but then you can input any like PNGs or stuff for like, say for like the spells, like for Call Lightning, you get like a circle of lightning to put down.
Yeah.
To show like the radius of the spell.
Nice. Cool. What do you got?
Earlier we were talking about like taking a real world map and renaming the stuff. You keep the first letter, so like Houston would be another town with H in it.
Yeah, like you could say it's Havilah or Havilah. Or you could just like it could be fun to switch around and say instead of Houston, all the cities are just reversed. So instead of Houston, it'd be Nosto. Right. El Paso is now OSAP Lil El. No, Lil El. El Paso Lil. So yeah.
In terms of city where everything was on fire and there was each slogan in the class was called LA.
That's great. Okay, so with all of these tools, so we talked about counters, flavoring them, not just letting them be combat, adjusting to the party. We talked about if we need to build a map and a quick like crash course in why that might be beneficial. What else does it make you think about? Or what questions does it bring to mind? Or what should I add next time I do this workshop?
So if you have a combat counter and you want to say have like minions, what's the actual minions speed relative to the main thing? Like you have the big spider from before, and you want to have like a bunch of little spider wings.
So what I would do is I would usually, if there's usually not just one minion unless it's a very noteworthy. Like if you think of the movie Anastasia, the little bat, you're coming to pieces, boss, like that guy. He's a very noteworthy minion. So if there's more than one minion, if there's only one minion, it should be noteworthy. And if I'm not sure, I would stay flexible to the party. And so I might, if it's a CR5 party, I might aim at like a CR2 minion and drop down at least 3 levels. But I would also be flexible if the party's like having a hard time. I would if I set the minion to like 40 hit points and the party's having a hard time, I might just change the number without them knowing and say there's only 20 hit points here. If I see that they're having a harder time, I might have there be a second minion that's like cousin or brother that's equally silly but in a different way, almost like Bert and Ernie style.
Building up if you're rolling for a genre, if you're not really certain what kind of theme you want to go for exactly, you could try to cut it up and say like, all the areas on this side of the map, and then you like roll for a genre.
Yeah.
And you like cut it up and roll for genre for each.
Oh, I like that. So I was using a D4 for genre, so we could say right here is the romance, right here is the action, and here's another romance, so that could create a love triangle. Where's there a D4? Anywhere else? This way? There's no more D4s, so then we're out. Or we come up with a 6-sided genre layout or something. But yeah, I like that. That could be way, and so then it's like, if that's the place I have the most built out, there's a volcano, 2 romances, and an action scene, well maybe that's the place I start the party, because of it, if that makes sense, wherever the biggest cluster is. What other things does this make you think about, or questions it brings to mind? What would it take for you to get started with the next thing?
Like what happens after combat,
Or like for each of you individually, like what is it going to take for you to run the next session?
I'm probably gonna go with my players react too well. So if I throw in a couple jokes or a silly moment and they really have a good time with it, I'm probably gonna take some area and be like, oh, there's a comedy cabin there or something.
What is it?
One giant smile.
So, and that's a good, so that ties to a principle you want to hang on to that I call seeding. So a lot of people, if you want to avoid railroading, seed 3 or 4 different options and then see which one they seem most engaged by. And the people who are like, ooh, scary, straw-like vampire creature, let's go that way. Or they're like, ooh, happy-go-lucky, friendly elf person dancing off in the street. Or, oh, look, children, and they're stealing coin. Whichever, whatever it is that you're seeing them gravitate toward, you seed without railroading. All right, is it 2:45? I think it is. Is it? 43. Okay, so we got time for a little more. No, okay, so seeding, and then if you're struggling, if you have never played or you have questions about character stuff, you can always hang out. The next workshop, I think, starts at 3:30.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so whatever the time, if it says 3:30, that's what it's going to be. That's going to be in Bradshaw 129. I feel like that's, yeah. So over where we usually have D&D. So if you know where the computer lab is, it's like right next to that. And yeah, so you can look back to, if you wanted to see the other workshops I did this week, you can find that on the channel that's on the back of the card. Use the QR code. It is 3. Okay, I gotta back up. Just kidding, that starts at 3. I'll see you over there in 10 minutes, I swear. So then that means I just have to pack up real fast. Do what? 16 minutes. Yeah. I can math. Okay, cool. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Hopefully you got something meaningful. The other one's on advanced DMing techniques, facilitating, or not facilitating fun, but digging into some of the more challenging situations that a DM might find himself in, and some tools we have for that. All right. Have fun. Thanks for showing up.